Hey IED students, before we get into the assembly piece where we put the cams into the box, one thing that we need to make an adjustment on is on the cams themselves. So go ahead and open up the cams folder. So we have a pair, a circle, a hexagon, and so on. There are some issues with the shapes that we have made. The pair cam, you can see the segments that we have going on because of the different pieces that we used to make the shape. The circle, if you look on the edge, it's just one continuous flat edge. There are no separations. The hexagon definitely has some separate faces. So every 3D modeler is different. On shape, for us to be able to set the followers on top of these cams and have them flow around them, following them, they will not ride on the cams when they have these separate pieces like this. The eccentric cam is totally fine because it's all one face. The snail cam, well, we've got a couple issues on the snail cam, so we're going to need to make some adjustments to it. The parametric heart cam, you can see the different faces here. However, if you have followed my video on creating the heart cam, your heart cam is going to be fine. If you have not followed my video on the heart cam, you will need to make an adjustment to the heart cam as well. So let's go back to the pair. So the three that we're going to need to work through are the pair, the hexagon, and the snail. You may need to work through the heart as needed. So on this pair cam, I'm going to get rid of this extra sketch that's there. I'm also going to hide the different planes that we have going on. So what we're going to do on this pair cam is I'm going to create a new sketch on this front face, and I'm going to create a new part on top of it. So I'm going to rename the current pair as the real pair cam. That way, if I'm ever planning to 3D print this, I would print the real one. But if I'm just trying to work with it in Onshape, I'm going to use this adjusted version. So I'm going to go ahead and put a sketch on this front face. And what I'm going to do here is use a spline tool, just the regular spline. I'm going to start here right at the top, and I'm going to click a few points going around. Honestly, it doesn't matter how many points you click. Technically, the more the better, but it's also going to take longer if you click a lot of points. So we're just going to click, 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 and back to where we started. I'm going to hide the real cam for now. And the thing about this is that it does include a bunch of constraints. And so we're going to delete this constraint that keeps popping up, because this won't allow us to move any of these points, and we need to be able to move them. So hover over, click on that. It's a coincident constraint. And delete those coincident constraints. So hover over, click, and I use backspace or delete to delete them quickly. Otherwise, I believe you can right-click and choose delete sketch entity. Okay. But for me, using a key is a little bit faster. So for us to create this singular face, I'm going to click and drag and just bring these points out or off of the original. Oops. And if it replaces, what it does is it just adds that constraint back on. So we're kind of changing the shape a little bit. As you can see, that's happening. We're definitely changing the size, so it's no longer a parametric cam setup. However, what's important is that go ahead and delete that, see if that fixes it. It did. What's important is that we get this, singular face along the outside. Okay, so it kind of looks like an egg at this point, but it still is the roughly, the same as the original pair, roughly. So let's go ahead and check mark that, and we will extrude. And I don't want to extrude the original cam. I want to extrude the sketch we just used. So click on sketch 2 there. Make this 0.25 inches. Make this the thickness parameter, I suppose. Make sure it says new there. And now we have this this new, and as you can see, we actually still have a couple of issues there at the top. Okay, so I can still see these separate faces. So I'm going to go ahead and re-enter Sketch 2 and try to, yeah, there was one that I didn't move. So yeah, they really do have to get moved off of the original cam. So just make sure they stay off of there. All right, that looks pretty good. I mean, roughly. And then look, those faces, those separate faces went away. All right. I'm missing the hole in the center though, so let's make sure we go back in and click Use. I might have to review. There we go. So use that. Aha. So now we can see our new cam sitting on top of the original cam, and we have the hole there. So I'm going to rename this pair blob. So that's the part that we'll actually use in our Automata box assembly. We'll do that same thing with the hexagon, where we put a new sketch on the front. We use a spline, clicking around, just kind of getting the gist of it here. And so yeah, it gets kind of wobbly, but that's okay. So looking at that. You know, for this one, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to, well, I need to make sure I use the hexagon's hole. There we go. I'm going to give this one a shot and see if I can extrude Sketch 2 with that thickness and just see what it looks like. I'm going to hide these planes. Yeah, that actually looks really good. So without having to move the spline points, we have this nice singular face on this hexagon. So I am definitely going to use that. Hex blob. Rename the real hexagon. Okay, all right, so that looks really good. As I mentioned, you don't have to do anything to the heart cam if you followed my video. However, if you did not, then you would definitely want to add that spline and see if you can get that to tidy up. And do the same thing with the snail cam. I'm going to hide the planes here, and then I'm going to add a sketch right on the front using a spline. I'd like this to be nice and tidy like the hexagon was. So I'm going to avoid clicking like some of the constrained spaces there. See if I can't make this happen for us. Make sure to use the hole that's on the original snail cam. Name that snail reel. And hide it just for a little help. We'll extrude Sketch 2. Make sure it says new. Get it to that thickness. Look at that. That looks awesome. Okay, cool. So, as I mentioned, make sure to go through and change all of your cams using that spline. Add a new extrusion onto them. Rename them so you know what we're putting into the assembly. All right, get your cams ready. In the next video, we are assembling the cams onto the axle.